Welcome to the Journey to Happy podcast, a podcast dedicated to help you in the process of getting out of your own way and letting go of the mental barriers that have been self created that stand on the way of you and the emotional freedom and happiness that you so desire. I am Olga, your host, and in here I'm going to offer you raw but real examples that will help you step into the shoes of becoming the CEO of your own life. Because let's face it, in a world where you can be anyone you want, why not promote yourself to the CEO position? I cannot wait to see you inside. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Journey to Happy podcast. My name is Olga. I am your host. And in today's episode, I am happy to talk to you about my lessons during 2020. You guys, I have a big notebook with reflections and lessons, but I have selected a few because I obviously want this podcast to come to an end, this episode to come to an end eventually. And I've selected a few, but yeah, I'm gonna do my best to stick to what I've selected. But you never know. I love talking, and I think that we can all agree 2020 was a year full of twists and unexpected scenarios. And so, obviously, for those of us who were open to learning, the lessons were limitless. That was definitely the case for me. If you are new to my podcast, welcome. It is a pleasure to be meeting you. And if you are an old timer, I am excited that you're here. First thing I want to ask you guys as we move along this podcast is to subscribe and review my podcast. This helps me hugely in my ability to continue to bring to you content that is helpful. When you guys review a podcast and subscribe to the podcast, it makes this podcast be more searchable and of access to everybody else, which in turn helps me hugely in the creation of content, in knowing what you guys like, what subjects or themes are being really appreciated by you, the audience. So if you want to get more content that speaks to you specifically, you honestly have to let me know what you're liking, what you're not liking. Letting other people know about the podcast is also super helpful because then I get a larger pool of people providing me with feedback. All right, so as I'm going through the lessons of 2020, oh my God, I almost had a headache just going through all my notes and thinking, holy crap, this year was such a big year. So if you're brand new to me, if you don't know me at all, I became a mom late 2019. So really 2020 was my first year as a mom and as an entrepreneur. And balance had been my word. So from the moment 2019 was coming to an end, I knew my baby was at that point 2 months old. I knew I was due to come back to work. And I wanted so desperately to show up as an amazing coach while never letting my motherhood sort of like fall through with any absence. I simply wanted to be a phenomenal mom and a phenomenal wife, obviously, and coach. And you know what? I believe I can have it all. So I knew it was possible. All I needed to do was to find that balance. So one of the things that I learned during 2020 is that caregiving is a balancing act. And the balance is in between trying to do it all. Actually, what I learned was the balance of not striving to be perfect, but rather to be human. And what I mean by human is giving myself permission to have days of exhaustion, to have days off, to have days of really enjoying being with my son, and to have days of really disliking being with my son, to have days of really enjoying being a coach and days where I'd rather not coach anyone. That's what I mean by being human. I've realized that I started the year with this ideal of what a balanced life would be. How could I balance motherhood and how could I balance owning my business and showing up to my marriage for the first time with a third wheel and not letting this impact us. And throughout the year, clearly, and I mean, if I wasn't supposed to be doing this, 2020 really made a point to teach and point out this lesson for me, which is perfection gets us nowhere. It builds up stress when we're trying to take care of somebody we love. We want to give our best, and for some of you listening, if your job also means you're taking care of people, then professionally you're so invested in seeing people make progress, and often we just get so used to this concept of giving and in a perfect way. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to have bad days. And I promise you, the days in which I felt like a bad mom in 2020 were counted. I can count them with my hand because I personally came to save the day by understanding that the goal wasn't to be a perfect mom. I am a learning mom. I am in school right now, learning how to be a mom. And just having that understanding and that permission to be a student, whoa, that was balance, my friends. That was balance. So, yeah, I understood throughout this year more than ever that being human, as simple as it may sound, is the key to a balancing life, which means we expect highs and lows. And what mattered most to me during those lows, which I had them, was my response. And again, this is why I'm so passionate about mindset. I didn't start out as a mindset coach. I started out as a therapeutic social worker, and I was doing therapy only. And then I moved into coaching, life coaching, and slowly I'm really diving into mindset coaching because I love the transformations that come from mindset, shifting the way in which we look at things. In fact, my business is called Olga's Way because my husband said to me, you know what people look for the most when they're talking to you? Is your mindset, is the way in which you look at life. So you should call your business Olga's Way because it's your way of interpreting, especially the difficult scenarios. So, caregiving is a balancing act of staying human while going through the ups and downs of what it's like to love somebody so much that you want the best for them, you want to show up as the best you, but you cannot become a superhero. I often tell my clients, this reminds me actually of something I teach my clients when coaching, which is this idea of sharing your sandwich. So if you've got one sandwich for lunch and your friends come over and they're all hungry and you really feel inclined to giving them your sandwich, what we do as caregivers is we give the entire sandwich and leave nothing left for us. And so what I coach them to do is to share that sandwich. How can I split this up so that, sure, I feel good I'm doing and giving, but I'm also giving to myself. So that's one of the lessons I had, and quite honestly, if that's all I walk away with in 2020, that has been a massive, massive lesson for me because um, because I'm starting motherhood in such a good place, just not striving to be perfect, striving to be present, understanding, paying attention to what I need from me to show up to be the kind of parent that I want to be. And that has been incredibly helpful. So even if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, well, I don't truly have children, nor do I care for anybody, I'm sure you have friends or a partner that you care about. And so I would just ask you to reflect on how you show up and how can you bring some balance to that as well. Another lesson that I learned was nothing is more helpful to the mindset than a good coach and journaling. Holy macro. I've recently invested in a new coach, and it's made such a big difference to have a coach that actually speaks my language, that I can relate to, who is doing some incredible work and who has the ability to call me out on the things that I need to be called out on, or has a way to ask me questions that really makes me reflect on my own behaviors, doings, and lacks of doings. That has been really helpful. For those of you who don't know, I think I spoke about this in a previous podcast, or maybe it was in my Instagram trainings. I invested in 2019 on a coach that I had been following on religiously on her podcast. I loved her and I was so excited. She was opening up her mastermind and I joined, and it was extremely expensive and a complete fiasco. She was not a great coach, overall not a great human, honestly. And I invested everything I had while I was pregnant, going into potentially mat leave, and it felt so disappointing by the end of the year to know that I hadn't achieved the goals that I wanted to because of all the things that because we didn't connect, and she didn't show up the way I wanted, and so I didn't show up the way I had hoped. So having a good coach has made a massive difference, and it made a massive difference for 2020 for myself. Not only did I feel supported throughout the year, I also achieved like incredible milestones personally and professionally because I had an ally in my corner, somebody who was challenging me, somebody who knew the ins and outs of what was going on with my mindset, who could, would tell me about things that I wouldn't even have thought to ask myself because I didn't have the awareness that somebody from the outside can have looking inwards. So that was extremely powerful, and something that I leaned heavily on during 2020 as well was journaling. I came back to journaling. So I will have an episode on this because it's a big part of why I am a coach and how I've built so much resiliency in my life. But something I've been doing since I was 10 years old is writing my emotions out. I intuitively knew this was therapeutic and I would process emotions in writing. And to this date is one of my favorite ways to process emotions. But throughout life, and especially I post so much in my Instagram, I actually process my emotions a lot of times with you guys out there. I feel that that's been done. But 2020 brought that back for me full force, partially because I wanted to be so present for my baby and I wanted my emotions to have a space to exist. And so I found the combination of a great coach and journaling was like a perfect marriage. It was exactly what my mind and my emotional being needed, and it allowed me to be so aware of my surroundings, of myself, that it also gave me the clarity that I needed throughout the year to know like what steps to take to continue to make progress. And I celebrated so many milestones in 2020. Have you been thinking that it's time to join a gym membership, only that for your mindset? Have you been wanting to be a part of a community where your self-growth is what's being supported? Do you want to have a life coach in your back pocket, easy to reach at any given point? If you've been thinking that this is something for you, Reset Your Mindset might be exactly what you're looking for. It's my newest membership program where you have me on a regular basis answering your questions, where you will get monthly mindset trainings with some of my best tools and most recurring theme subjects in my coaching practice. You will also receive a work along workbook to move along, and you will have Zoom group calls with me to get your questions answered and to process some of those heavier emotions that you just don't know what to do about. If this sounds interesting to you, check out my website at www.olgasway.com and look for Reset Your Mindset membership program. I cannot wait to see you inside. We had an incredibly stressful year because one of our businesses, owned by my husband with a business partner, the relationship between business partners went really sour, and we recognized that this person was actually stealing from us, and not just a little bit of money, a lot of money. And so we ended up going through lawyers and through the court system, which because of COVID delayed and delayed. To this date, it hasn't been resolved, but we are out a lot of money, and we have a business that's not moving forward. And this is one of or was one of our biggest sources of income in this house, and one business that we have invested in a lot. So you can imagine that on its own could have been stressful enough. And then you had COVID and you had a new baby. Quite a few things we were challenged with this year. And I can probably tell you that we finished the year intact. Nothing really moved us from our goals, from a healthy mindset. We powered through. And I personally, maybe one day I'll have my husband come and tell us what he did that helped him. But what helped me was having a good coach and journaling. I think that was life-saving, quite honestly. Okay, so another lesson I got from 2020 is the power of deciding. Oh my God. I coach people on this on a regular basis, but really 2020 forced me to make so many decisions. Like the experience I just told you about that we went through forced me to have to make a lot of decisions that I had been procrastinating on because I didn't have the urgency to decide. And this is what I learned. When we make decisions, we dive in. We've decided. When you let people know about your decisions, now you're accountable. And if you are anything like me, you better come through. That's my experience. So there is some incredible power behind making decisions, which is why some of us shy away from deciding. And I have a lot of clients who are like, I just can't decide. What is it that I want? Really, what's happening is that they are afraid of the power that comes with making a decision. So this year, I pulled up my big girl pants and I decided that I wanted to be powerful enough to make decisions, important decisions, difficult decisions, but to make them. And what I realized is that even the decisions that were difficult to make, like I made some changes to the way I run groups and how I run them. And so that involved making some changes that impacted my clients. That was difficult, very difficult, because I love to keep people where they are and keeping them happy. But I had to make those decisions, or I decided that I was going to make decisions that were going to overall benefit me and my community better. And I stood in that power, and holy mackerel, the benefits have been unmeasurable. So if you're a person who postpones making decisions, ask yourself, why am I afraid of power? And then pull up your pants, my friend, and step into the power that was given to you because you can make decisions. The avoiding of making decisions is also avoiding of holding your power. So if you think you're good now, wait until you stand in your power. It's incredible, incredible, incredible. Like I double my income to the year before in the middle of a pandemic and working 20 hours a week and primarily caring for my son, and supported my husband going through something difficult without experiencing an ounce of extra stress in my mind and in my body, sleeping my nights. Nothing, worry was not taking over me. Why? Because I had the courage to make decisions that would allow me to sleep at night, that would allow me to stand in my power and know that nothing and not one could actually deviate me from making the decisions that I needed to make to protect me and my family. So that is very powerful. And I want you guys to think about this. We all have the power of deciding. See, I'm telling you, I selected a few lessons. I'm already so much into this talking. I am going to try to keep going. When life gives you lemons, make a lemonade. So I sort of just explained to you what happened to us in 2020. And I promise you that that's exactly it. You can roll your eyes all you want, but when life gives you lemons, make a lemonade. How can we make the best out of what is given to us? That was a repeated lesson for me. I feel that life has given me this lesson a few times. And so now I'm the master of making lemonades, but 2020 really made this a reality once again, which was how can I make lemonade? So if life, all you're giving me is lemons, guess what? I love lemons. So I'm going to make a lemonade and I'm going to enjoy it. And that was my attitude throughout 2020. You did not hear me complain. You did not hear me look at all the negatives of all the things we couldn't do. You didn't hear me worry about money, opportunities, not traveling, health. I chose personally to make a lemonade out of what life was offering to us. And so that meant my husband and I just really enjoyed that. Now we're both there for bath time with Mateo. We purposely brought our mind to just enjoying what was given to us. We really enjoyed the fact that we became such a stronger team because we really had to plan and schedule. Okay, you're taking care of Mateo while I do this, then you do this while I take care of Mateo, and then all of us go for a walk. We really decided that 2020 was not kicking us in the ass, that the opposite. We were going to kick ass in 2020, and so did we. So whenever you hear that phrase again, just ask yourself, how am I utilizing these lemons that life is giving me? And how can I best enjoy these lemonades? But the point is, if life gives you lemons, it's in your power to decide. Oh, you see how this is looping all together? How, or that you will make a lemonade out of that. All right. That's one other lesson. I'm going to move along because I told you I could talk. All right. So let me go through the next lesson. Use your team and really rely on them. I'm a huge community builder. If you know any of my programs, if you're in them, you know that I often bring other professionals. I believe hugely in the power of community. That's why I'm a huge fan of group coaching, why I get coached within a mastermind. I love just not just having one coach, but other women in my coaching programs that I can learn from. And so I facilitate the same type of experience for other people. But I tell you that 2020, being a new mom, going through the restrictions that we're going through as a world, being away from my parents for the first time for a full year, really made me rely on my team in the way I could. So who was my team? That I think became very evident for all of us throughout these restrictions when you had to create a bubble, and who would be in this bubble were probably the people that you rely on more heavily. And then I learned to rely on them, not to have people around me where I would normally be, oh, it's okay, I can process my emotions on my own. It's okay, I can watch my son and clean my house and buy my groceries and I need no help. I realized in 2020 that relying on my team was not only important, it was essential. It was essential for the proper functioning of my family and for my mental and emotional well-being. And so I really had to do some heavy lifting at first because I am a very proud women and I love getting things done on my own way. And so this took some adjusting, but in the end, it worked out so well for me. Whereas before, I was very reluctant of who would care for Mateo and what food he was going to be fed. And I just desperately wanted to control every step of the way. Throughout the year, I learned that none of that really mattered. That what I needed was to rely on the people that love me and love him to raise him, to give me time so that I can take a shower, go for a run, or coach people. And so the relying on my team became hugely. I don't think I've ever relied on my husband as much to have conversations where we process emotions as we did this year, or where we would just say, "This is what I need from you." I became so strategic and clear on letting people know what I needed from them, how they could support me, and obviously supporting them as well, right? It was a two-way street where I would hear them, and rather than be like, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that. That's not a real worry," I would really listen to my team and just hold space for them while they were talking about what was stressful or worrying them, and showing up in the way that I could support them, like I went to them specifically to be supported. And with that came gratitude. So I made a point to message my nanny and tell her randomly how much I appreciate the work she does, because without her, I wouldn't be able to coach the community and support the women that I supported throughout 2020. And calling my in-laws and saying how much I appreciate that they take Mateo one day a week, because that means my son gets to experience grandparents, something that my parents haven't been able to provide him with. And he gets to love other grown-ups, not just my husband and I. And so that became so crucial in 2020 for us, that I think that in moving forward and past all of this nightmare of COVID, we will continue to do, because we have really reaped the benefits of relying on our team. So if 2020 has not taught you that lesson, maybe it's time 2021 make it about uh, lowering the mental drama that tells you that asking for help is weak. That's the weakness. The weakness is to think that asking for help is weak. It brought so much power to me as an individual and for my family, even for Mateo. Like, yeah, like so much good came from that. Okay, the last two things that I'll share with you, and we'll call it a day and cut out this podcast that already is so long. Is this is what I learned in 2020. You're gonna laugh, but what was the one thing that we had permission to do in terms of going outside? Walks. Walks were never canceled. Okay, no, at least not in my city. So walks became my mental health thing to do. And I tell you, this is the lesson. Emotions can be walked through. That's the lesson. I learned that I can walk through any emotion. And in fact, I noticed, as somebody who suffered from anxiety, that when I was congested with emotions, if I would take this emotion on my walk, it would last and linger such a short period of time, because now I've mobilized it and I really walked through the emotion until the emotion wasn't there anymore in my body, and it worked. How many days were stressful? I tell you many. And I can tell you that I purposely, on the days that I felt stressed out, I walked through my emotions. I literally walked through. And so that's a huge lesson. In fact, now when I think about if ever I am frustrated, I did that this morning. I was frustrated at a scenario with somebody I collaborate with on a regular basis. And my response to that was to go for a walk. And I came back from the walk feeling like $1,000,000. This does not bother me anymore. It's been processed. It's done. I passed that page. I'm in a complete different stage now and feeling light. So that was a huge lesson for 2020. Emotions can be walked through. And We are now way into our 2021, and I haven't stopped walking my emotions. Actually, I love them. And one of my clients said to me, Olga, can we do our sessions while we walk? Her on her side of the city, actually, she's not even in my city, and me on mine. And we actually take these sessions and we talk on our phones. It's not a video conference, but we talk through our sessions. And she feels oftentimes that she doesn't need the sessions to last as long because she feels that she's processed things way faster. So I want you to think about this. Emotions can be walked through. And lastly, I want to leave you with uh, probably the lesson that brings many of these other lessons together, which is ignoring my self care can mean uh, the end to healthy Olga and healthy relationships. So it is not worth it. I think that a lesson that I needed to learn as a new mom was the importance of my own self care. And we hear this often when we go on, like inside planes. We know that the mask has to go on you before that on your dependents and or anyone else. And I honestly, before 2020, I would use those words to tell my clients, you got to take care of yourself first, not knowing what it felt like to be a mom. And when I became a mom, I realized that I had so much love for this tiny little being who really needs me so much that it's so easy to ignore my self care, to be there and be all things for Mateo. So just like I was saying at the beginning of this episode, that caregiving is a balancing act of staying human while avoiding being perfect. Uh, I realized more than ever that my own self care meant the beginning of healthy relationships. And you bet I want to have a healthy relationship with my son and with myself and with my husband. And the beginning of those relationships being healthy begins with a healthy dynamic with myself. It wasn't until a day where my husband said to me, you need to have you time. You cannot just have the nannies come and cover your working hours and immediately after you're back on being a mom. There has to be time during the week where it's just you time. And honestly, you guys don't tell him I wanted to fight. I actually fought him on that. I'm like, no, I don't need that time. I'm good. But that echoed in my mind. And I was like, he's 100% right. We will never tell him. He always thinks he's right. So he doesn't need to hear one more person telling him he is. But that really, really stuck with me because I realized much of what frustrations I was feeling had nothing to do with anyone other than me not placing the time and the energy on taking care of me. So ever since that moment, I start my days by taking care of me. So I know more or less what time Mateo wakes up, and God, I'm lucky. Even when he wakes up at 7:30, he stays quietly in his bed playing with or reading a book. So his bookshelf is close enough from his crib, and he just grabs a book usually, and he entertains himself easily until 8:30. Unless he has a dirty diaper and he's uncomfortable, he will definitely call us to go in sooner. I've decided that if I wake up at 6:30, which is early in my books, but not incredibly early in general, that I have an hour and a half, almost sometimes 2 hours, depending on how much Mateo sleeps, to myself. And that has become the best way to start my day by taking care of my needs. So I move during that time. I take a shower the length that I want. I usually enjoy my coffee and then I wait to have breakfast with Mateo. I cannot tell you how important that routine has become for me. That was the beginning of a healthy relationship, not only with myself, but with my son, because now I feel that I can tell him, hey, kid, I come first. And by doing so, I'm showing up so much more present to you at breakfast and from the rest of the morning. And equally goes with my husband. Like the benefit that has come to our marriage from me no longer resenting, what are you doing? What are you not doing? What are you doing with your time? How come I never have time to see or talk or do things outside of the home has ended, because now I feel that my needs, at least my immediate most important needs, are met by myself first thing every day. So it has also like a unconscious meaning to do it first thing in the morning, because it's like I am telling my inner self, Olga, you come first. You always come first. We start with you. And then I can take care of everyone else. So there, I wanted to leave you with these lessons for whatever they're worth to you. I hope that you also take the time to sit down and review what lessons 2020 left you with. This, by the way, is something I've done my entire life whenever I have gone through struggles, is I sit down and I write down the lessons from that. And that's the story I choose to remember the difficult life event by: the lessons, not how hard it was or how much pain I was in, but rather the lessons I learned. So I leave you with that. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Please, please, please review it, share it if it spoke to you, and comment. Let me know what you thought so that I know how to bring more of the same to you. All right. Bye for now. Stay healthy and see you next Monday.